All right, then. Welcome to Creators Talking Stream 2018, where we talk about comics, movies, and some TV. I'll skip the jokey introductions this time because they fell flat on their ass last time I did it. Yeah. So,
Razor.
Yeah,
Razor.
Yeah. So first of all, we've got EJ,
Lumbago,
Scott,
Hey.
Wombat,
good morning.
and Peter.
Hello.
Thanks for everyone for joining, especially EJ, who managed to make it on time for this one.
How long are you going to hold me to account for that? Like, let it go.
It was just hearing about your reaction to seeing the live stream event pop up on your TV when you were supposed to be in it, going, "Oh, he's doing a live stream." Shit! I'll always remember that above anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we did a little stream mid-year where we talked about some gaming because all had happened with that, and a lot of comics and TV and movies. With the comics, we briefly covered the crowdfunded scheme, of what was it called? Cyberfrog, and the one Richard Meyer did. His name completely escapes me now. Why? I don't know.
Jawbreakers.
Thank you, Jawbreakers. That now exploded into what we now know as Comicsgate, where a series of creators appeared and did their own crowdfunded schemes for books, comics, or whatever. And in a move on August 27th, a series of comic creators from Marvel, DC, and whatnot widely condemned the movement as if coordinated. That sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it?
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Weird little playbook, thing.
Yeah. But looking at the numbers for some of the titles that were crowdfunded, it is an impressive triumphant scheme for each one, because there's not a single one of the examples I've had here that were under 200% funded at the least. I've got 9 examples here, and the reason I've got only 9 is because there's new ones popping up quite often. Too much for me to keep track of this year alone. But it's been interesting to watch, hasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. A very clear example of people basically doing that whole principle of you make what people want in a format that's easy to work with and easy to supply, and you'll be drowned in money.
There's also, I think, a little bit of an element of, people voting with their wallet, essentially, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's essentially they're having the old school, the old pros are having to completely recreate the comics industry to work around the bloody indigestible turd that is the woke crowd.
Yeah.
So
yeah, rebuilding from the bottom up almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, there are varying degrees of success, but they all look fantastic. The ones that I've got quoted here, anyway. I'll name the examples that I've got. Graveyard Shift, the John Mallon book, 1,864% funded. Blue Mamba, 274% funded. I could go on here. Red Rooster, Lone Star, Battle Maiden, Knuckle Bomb, Lady Alchemy, Jack Irons, Dead Detective, and Brutus the Badass are the ones that I've got. None of them just achieved their goals. They went straight over it. And it's also wonderful to watch what they do with the additional contributions, either bumping up the size of their books, giving them glossy covers or something like that. For example, I backed Battle Maiden Knuckle Bomb, and because he reached his stretch goal of 30,000, every backer gets a print of the main character now. And again, I could go on here. Red Rooster, they upgraded the front cover to have a gold foil logo, which is something you don't see very often these days.
It's not the 90s anymore.
No, but then again, the ones of those you do see tend to be the exclusives to comic shops. They sell for 3 or 4 times the price of what they get them in at.
Well, hell, even more than that. You're talking usually stuff like that when you're talking limited variants, like 1 in 10s, 20s. They're going for baseline, generally speaking, like with the large publishers, you're looking at a baseline of 30 on the secondary market and anywhere up into the hundreds, depending on the book and all that sort of thing.
But are there criticisms of Comicsgate from anybody here?
Well, it's not so much a criticism. I'm going to kind of leave this to you guys because I haven't followed it very strongly or very persistently. But I think something that you have to think about too with a lot of this, I wonder if these things would have been nearly as successful had the people that were so against them not been so fervent with putting this information out there and really helping them get exposure.
Good old Streisand effect. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's something you really have to look at, because as much as you want to look, you generally want to look on this kind of thing as a victory for the little guy, where you want to say, look, they did something that people really like and people reacted to it. And, that is a great storyline. That's a wonderful storyline. It's, it's like the little guy rose up and stood up against the fucking asshole corporations and all these dickheads that were trying to keep him down. But you really have to factor in that. I wonder if this is going to have the kind of longevity that they want to, past the point of people being like, oh yeah, we're excited to stick it to these assholes. Is this going to be able to maintain? I mean, because I have to ask. I have to wonder if this is going to be sustainable.
Yeah, and this is going to be a case of, well, you guys have got your chance. It's only going to be sustainable if they continue to produce a quality product that the comics market want. So, they've got their start. But they're going to live and die based on their own product, which is completely fair enough.
Exactly. Their future is completely in their own hands. They are the ones that will decide ultimately.
Yeah. Well, as it stands right now, the idea is to basically make up new distribution methods, because currently the market is entirely monopolized by Diamond Distributions.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
If you aren't in the good books with Diamond, you can't
get.
Yeah, if you're not in with Diamond, you simply cannot get distributed, especially to stores.
Yeah.
And the future goal with a lot of these guys is, especially with Ethan Van Sciver and John Malin, Diversity in Comics, the one who started all this, is to set up their own ways of getting people in contact with good printers, good distributors, like people who can handle like the mail outs and that sort of thing, but also eventually start putting their toes in the water when it comes to physical stores, and start actually putting them in physical stores, not just for themselves, but also to help stores stay alive.
Yeah, because obviously wasn't there, I think it was, didn't Richard Meyer say at some point you need to do perks where retailers can buy packs of so many at a discounted price?
He's done a perk system initially that was donations towards like veterans, but donations in the way that we'll send them packs of comics for them to have entertainment while they're overseas. And he wants to grow that to having an option for, say, retailers get the books at a certain discounted price. So that's an incentive for retailers to start picking up some of the books.
Yeah.
And then have the structure there. So if retailers go, actually, I quite like what these people are making. So it can be, if retailers start buying in, they have means of distributing it at distributing to these retailers.
I have a concern. Well, I do have a criticism of Comicsgate, and I say this in full support of it because I do like what they're doing. And that is the whole thing where they're trying to remain apolitical, but just by doing so, that's putting them in a political position. Look at the schism that happened when Vox Day tried to trademark it.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Vox Day tried to trademark it. Seriously.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did.
Oh, that guy's such a craven opportunist. He's the worst.
He basically got his shit pushed in by Ethan Van Sciver, who stepped up and basically went, "No, I know exactly." He's trying to go, "Oh, I'll help everyone." He's like, "No, I see exactly what you're doing. You want to basically take these words and then basically slap them on everything, and anyone who then should even mention Comicsgate and anything they're doing, you'll jump on them and try to sue them." So, no, I'm going to forestall that by essentially copywriting it, but copywriting it in a way that if anyone wants it, they can have it. I'm not actually going to enforce things.
There was such an there was such an anti-establishment aspect to Comicsgate that I actually really appreciated, because it was just like, yeah, let's fuck the big guys and like let's focus on the indies, right? But then he comes in and trademarks this, and it's just like, what are you doing, man? Like and the worst thing is because like it or not, he's tied to a political opinion. Right,
yeah.
like
you think
Vox,
absolutely.
You think of Vox, and I've seen some of the things this guy said, and I'm like, wow, dude.
Yeah, this guy's got he's got a lot of baggage.
But to be fair, I mean, the Comicsgate lot were pretty quick in shutting Vox down. And
for sure, and I think, I think that was a strong element. But regardless, it still did result in a schism. Very similar to what we saw with Gamergate a few years back, when it kind of like there was that weird alt-right fucking fringe that just emerged out of it, right?
Well, to be fair, that sort of thing's going to happen regardless. Just
for sure, yeah.
It's just because of the world we live in these days. But the main people involved, especially the people producing comics right now, they're being very much a case of, we don't give a shit about drama. Be it political, personal, or otherwise. They're all very smart in that if someone tries to start something, they're like, I'll have a chat with you to see if you're being reasonable. If you're not, they're meaning like, okay, nice chat, bye-bye.
And all the people, it basically separates out the posers from the people who are actually doing stuff. People who are actually doing stuff will just ignore the drama and going, no, I'm creating my comic product, putting it out to the community, and then it's up to the community as to whether it lives or dies. Whereas you get the likes of Vox Day, it's like he's not actually creating anything, he's just there to try and monopolize on it and make it all about Vox, which is why he got shut down pretty quickly.
Yeah, and he also had one of his Indiegogos shut down this year, didn't he?
Oh,
yes, he did. Yes, and I feel very sorry for the old comic pro he was working with, who was doing the artwork and such, because he's the one that ended up hurt the worst. Because it's essentially Indiegogo doing the right thing with what they did, despite how much of a backlash they got for it. Essentially, right up to the point where the check was meant to be cut to get the comic started.
Yeah.
And they were pretty much hours away from doing that when an investigation that Indiegogo had going on reached a point where they basically just shut it down instantaneously and started funneling the money back to people, because they found that Vox was doing things off-site and linking into the Indiegogo, where he was essentially running a Russian PayPal version type site, where he's just like, oh yeah, instead of going through Indiegogo, do it via, it goes to Indiegogo and marks up, but it goes via this Russian bot site with the money.
Yeah,
so
this guy
Indiegogo got wind. They did the right thing by investigating it to the nth degree to ensure that what they were doing was the correct right thing to do.
Cover the bases, yeah.
And so when it came to cutting that check for all the money, they just went smack, no, not a red sentence leaving here. We're holding the money they held the money for about 2 or 3 days, and once they sort of got pretty much a confirmation, they started funneling it back to people.
I mean, this is Vox, though. Is anybody really surprised that he would do something like that? I think
but
it's shady as fuck.
It's the comic artist himself that everyone feels most for, because as much of a mouthy asshole as he could be, he's an excellent artist who deserved to work on things, and it's him that got hit the absolute worst.
Right.
For everything that happened.
Well, you got to be careful who you hitch your wagon to,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the folks, but I mean, some of the folks in Comicsgate did suffer in their own way for getting involved in it. I mean, the Brightwisers who did Red Rooster were forced to pull out of a convention earlier this year for fears of their safety.
And the wife is still, the wife is still suffering like a lot of persecution in that, even though she's sort of backed out on things and not responding to people or anything like that. They're still trying to destroy her, even though she's not engaging in anything of this political bullshit.
Of course, Van Sciver had a picture of Robbie Rodriguez's ass sent to him over Twitter.
Not just his ass.
Not just his ass. Yeah.
Wait, Rodriguez sent a picture of his junk and stuff to him?
His gaping asshole.
He literally sent him a picture of him pulling his ass cheeks apart.
He
show him brown eyes.
He goated him.
Yeah. And somehow managed to get away with it.
You know what's funny? He follows me on DeviantArt. I actually used to talk to him quite often when I had Tumblr.
Yeah.
And I thought he was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Becoming a running joke of a meme now.
And
unfortunately, it's what happens when a lot of them go woke. They just lose their minds.
And a lot of the other Comicsgate crowd have been harassed in one form or another, usually with the involvement of a cosplayer by the name of Renfamous. Yes, I've seen her.
Christ.
She is something.
She apparently is very infamous for just being a shit-stirring, bitch to everyone and anyone. It doesn't matter what your political bent is. It doesn't matter what you're involved in. If she somehow gets a little feather up her ass about you, she'll try to ruin you regardless.
She's the Zoe Quinn. She's the Zoe Quinn of Comicsgate.
No, she's not though. Zoe Quinn was never as proactive as Renfamous is.
But also, Renfamous is a case of she's not just focused on one thing. She'll go after anyone and everyone for whatever reason she feels.
She's Quinn lets everybody else do it for her.
Yeah, she's the Shanley of the Comicsgate.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit more appropriate. Yeah, a little bit more apt.
I got involved in a tweet thread with her at some point, and I don't even know how it happened. What the hell are you talking about, lady? Because like just the hot take. Like I can't even remember it, but it was just like 2 or 3, one after the other, of just like, you are being ridiculous. Like what?
Yeah.
That's exactly what she does.
Like, did your daddy not love you?
It's like basically like,
or did your daddy love you too much?
No, that's not good.
Yeah, right. When I see Renfamous start talking, it basically reminds me a lot of Candace Owen. Like, oh my god, you just can't shut up, and you were saying some of the dumbest things I've literally ever read in my life. It's like,
oh man,
yeah.
I just watched an interview with her and Russell Brand. She was on the Russell Brand show, right? And these two were talking past each other so much. It's just like they're pretty much agreeing on a lot of things, but it was so ridiculous. It's just like I understood what each one was saying, but they didn't understand each other. It was like,
anyway,
well, that's the thing. That's the thing with Candace Owens is she doesn't. Whenever I've seen her like go on TV shows and stuff, like when she goes on like news programs or whatever, she's not there to have a discussion, just like anybody else on her.
She's provoking. Yeah, for sure.
Well, even more than that, she's there to read her talking points and just basically like any good politicians. Like it's like watching a political debate when the debate moderators will ask them a question, and then they'll say something completely not even anywhere even associated with what the question was, but they got to get that talking point out, and she does that every time I've seen her speak, like live on TV or whatever it was. She's basically just saying whatever she wants to say, regardless of anything that's happening around her. She's just like, oh, it's quiet now. It's my turn to talk. Let me say this fucking thing I have lined up, and she's just a fucking. She's
there to pontificate. She's not there to talk. Exactly. She's not there to discuss.
All right.
She's just there to pontificate.
Maybe we should get on track. Yeah.
Sorry, got a little derailed there. Apologies.
Oh, good.
Of course, the harassment isn't just stuck to those who are working on the comics. Those covering it on YouTube have suffered as well, because the YouTuber, that Umbrella guy who's covered a lot of this, and you can be argued is pro Comicsgate, had his place of work contacted and his address put out there on his daughter's birthday, which itself was like, whoa, what the hell?
Yeah. Who
they also attempted to basically try and dox and contact his daughter, who's 4 years old.
Yeah.
I had them trying to dig up info on my daughter back in the day, man. That was the craziest thing. And I'm like, I went into full dad mode right away. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to like scrub everything every mention I made of her off the internet. She was 18 by that point, but I was like, no. Like, you don't fuck with my daughter, man.
But a couple of shout outs to be mentioned here before we go into a couple of the other bits. We had the Starburns Presents comic on Kickstarter, which was involved Patton Oswalt and pals trying to boost their sales by using Comicsgate, and he only just got it funded in the closing hours of the scheme on Kickstarter.
Suspiciously by a last-minute donation type thing. You're like, it's almost like he just,
did it himself.
Funded it himself so he could get the rest of the money.
Yeah,
that's weird too, because you'd think just based on the celebrity notion of it, like they'd have no problem.
Well, I mean,
no,
here's the problem with that, though,
is
Patton Oswalt has fucking done himself no favors over the last couple of years, man. Just blowing his mouth off all the time.
But Starburns, man, like those are the guys behind Rick and Morty and like fucking Community.
Much, and especially the way he'd written up the comic and the pages he had.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you liked Patton Oswalt, you wouldn't waste your money on this thing.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Much of a basically platform to grow from. And it's funny how that last donation happened, because Indiegogo works in a way that if you don't meet your goal, you don't get anything. So that's quite interesting how it suddenly met that goal the very last day.
Yeah, this was on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Kickstarter, yeah.
Yeah, but it was literally 103% funded, and the donations coming in quickly at the last minute to save it.
Yeah.
How much was the amount that they were asking for?
I've got the final amount here is 37,500. So I think they're asking for 35.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he was asking something ridiculous like 35.
What was the I wonder what the difference was. Like, how short were they?
I watched it towards the end, and at one point they were at 97% in the closing hour, and then it was funded like that.
Okay, that's what I'm kind of getting at, is that all right? It makes sense for them to pony up the last $1,500 or whatever it is to be able to get 35,000 or 37 or whatever it is out of it. So I mean, why wouldn't they do it? You know, it's like we're a little short. If we just put up the money now, look how much we're going to get on the ass end of that, because we're just putting it up a little bit. So.
But it's also interesting to note that the amount they're asking for versus pretty much everyone in the Comicsgate side of things, and even people sort of that aren't really associated with Comicsgate who are trying out doing their own comics. Generally speaking, the highest end they tend to go for, as far as how much they're asking for, is around 10K.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's sitting between about 5 and 8.
Yeah. That's
so
right.
He was asking for a lot for a comic.
Yeah, because it's a couple of examples from the Comicsgate side. I mean, Lady Alchemy, she was asking for $8,000 for hers, and while she was on stream with Ethan Van Sciver, the comic got funded in the hour or so she was on stream. Wow. And Bare Battle Maiden Knuckle Bomb was asking for $3,000, I think, and he hit 30. So there you go. And it's interesting to also note, because a lot of these schemes were not on Kickstarter because of Kickstarter's various policies or political views, whatever you call it. It's estimated Kickstarter lost around about 2 million from not having those projects on their platforms.
Mm-hmm. Also, with Indiegogo, it's more reliable because of the factor of if you do not meet your goals, you do not get anything. Whereas with Kickstarter, you can get, say, half funded or 3/4 way funded, get the money and never produce anything. But Indiegogo works on Indiegogo works on the basis of, we'll help you get the money and whatever else, but you've got a time limit before you have to start showing us that you're actually producing the product, or we'll start putting pressure on you. And
imagine that accountability built into a system like that. So weird.
If after a certain period you're not producing anything, or you haven't produced anything, say you're still working, they will take legal action to get the money back and send it back to the donors.
Right.
So you have a strong incentive with Indiegogo to not basically do the whole cash and run.
So one of the other topics we talked about earlier in the year, but only briefly, was obviously the latest Marvel relaunch to try and pull the fans back in. But before we do that, we'll give an
Marvel. Wah, 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 wah.
But before we do that, we'll give an honourable mention to Stan Lee. May he rest in peace. Which is one thing I never wanted to hear myself say, but well, it happened. May he rest in peace. 95 years old.
Yeah, at least he can be with his wife again, because she was his entire world.
And his creations will outlive us all.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were numerous tribute drawings that I saw pop up on Twitter in the following days of his death, but the one I loved the most was him standing with Doctor Strange, who's opened a portal to like a sunny beach, and there's his wife on the other side. I thought, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, may he rest in peace.
For sure.
Now, with the Marvel relaunch, there are too many titles to list to get into the one stream to talk about, obviously for timing reasons. So I've picked a few here. But looking at the numbers I've got, the pattern is the same with all of them. They start off really impressively, or in most cases anyway, and then they drop dramatically in some cases. And it's the same thing over and over again with these titles. I'll get them name a couple.
To be fair, Justin, if you look at comics over the last, say, 5 to 7 years, that's kind of par for the course. Like,
I was actually
look at the first 1, 2, probably 3 issues, you'll get pretty consistently decent numbers, and then you will see a dramatic drop off after like the 3rd issue or so. So well, this is nothing new. This
I'll name a couple of examples here so you can see what I'm talking about. I mean, Black Panther 1 sold 122,000 units. Mm-hmm. Issues 2 and 3 was selling at 35,000 units.
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man 289,000, 213, 3, 86. I could go on and on. The most impressive numbers to get for it, though, were Fantastic Four, which sold 370,000 units for its first issue, and Venom, which was 226,000 for that issue. It's very impressive to watch, but as even though you've rightly pointed out, they do drop off dramatically in some cases. And those are the ones that scored the highest as well. I mean, to have a laugh, The Life of Captain Marvel didn't even break 100,000 units for its first issue. 74,000, and then it dropped to 33 and then 29.
And I think that there's something to be said about the fact that like all of these IPs are currently like blown up because of the movies.
Yes.
Right. I mean, so you'd think that would definitely have a stronger, purchase effect. But I think what's happening is people are reading the comics and it's not at all consistent with what they've learned from the movies. So they're like,
exactly.
And they give up.
They've basically got an idea from the movies, what these comics are like. Get all excited, go into their local comic book shop, grab a copy, read it, and go,
What is happening?
Is this?
I don't understand
like what I
any
saw
of
at the movies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm collecting the Venom series because I thought, you know what, I want to give it a chance because it looks like it's got a decent team on it, and it is a decent story. I mean, it's regarding the discovery of the symbiote god. And so far,
symbiote god.
Yes.
What?
It's a new character, but so far it's quite intriguing. And the issue where he first appears is now worth more than the first issue.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a first appearance, so there you
go. But the artwork is decent of that one anyway. But it's amusingly also they released a series for Ironheart after the whole thing with her taking over from Tony Stark. But the first issue of that only managed 40,000 units.
Yeah, I was going to say that one tanked pretty hard, didn't it?
Yes.
That was something that I actually like I said, over the past 5 to 7 years, I haven't really read comics very consistently, but I was always interested in sales numbers and stuff, so I would actually look up that kind of thing. And it's pretty amazing how consistently, regardless of what the titles are, how you'll see 1 through 3 is generally sells pretty good, and then like Pitta brought up was I think a lot of the drop off has to do with she said, whereas people have been watching films and they're like, oh man, I want to get involved in this, and then they go into the comic shop and they're like, wait, what the fuck? But it's just kind of crazy though. It's you see that, and it's a very dramatic drop too. It's not like a gradual tailing off where fans are kind of maybe they switch writing teams or artists or something like that. But it's just boom.
It's also the factor of people are like, oh, a new number 1. Let's see what this is about.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Maybe number 2 will explain things better. And by the 3, they're like, I'm done. This isn't getting any better. This is getting worse. Nope, done.
Of course, another factor in these numbers is also the stupid amount of variant covers they do for the first issues alone. I mean, I've got a few numbers here because I didn't want to go silly, but Fantastic Four had 30 variants for issue 1.
What?
Yeah. And this
really?
This is before the second and third printings and so forth.
Holy shit.
Venom had 27. Spider-Man had, I don't know. Spider-Man had 34, and Captain Marvel had 9.
But, dude, that reminds me of, remember when Gen 13 came out?
Remember
I think there was
once upon a time a variant meant something because it was generally a case of it was a lottery of which stores would get which one of these variants that were most for maybe 5 or 6. So you had to be incredibly lucky to land the one you were looking for.
Oh yeah.
Now they've made that entirely pointless.
Yeah.
34 variant. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Like that literally. Okay. I fucking wow. I'm just
okay. It's one of the few times Scott found something to say about it.
Okay, well here's the thing though. All right, you think
I could just hear your mind go blah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like okay, all right.
He's losing his ability to even. I mean,
I really am. Okay, but seriously, like from a business perspective, you got to look at this, right? You're having 34 artists, inkers, and make these covers, right?
Yeah,
artists, inkers, colorists. 34 different groups of people to make 34 covers.
Not always, because there's a new trend now where they do what's called a virgin cover, where they publish it without the logo and the barcode.
Okay, there's that. That's true.
Yeah,
there are some exceptions, but I mean, you get what I'm getting at here, though. It's like
yes,
you have got like 34. Okay, well, let's just say that even like maybe just for the sake of this argument here, you've got 34 different inkers, 34 different colors, and 34 different artists. Okay, that cost a fucking ton of money.
Yeah,
that it is not cheap to do that.
because my local shop has got 2 of the variants of Venom 1, and one of them is it's basically a copy and paste of an old McFarlane drawing.
Oh yeah, no homage.
Yeah, and then he's got that version, and then there's the black and white version of that.
Oh yeah, there you go. There's that too.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm saying though, it's like, what are the budgets on these books that they can afford to do that? That's fucking crazy.
I don't know.
I can tell you right now, they're paying these artists and writers and that an absolute pittance.
Yeah,
you'd earn better working at bloody McDonald's.
Well,
at this point, with some of the pay they're giving these people, but they're also tricking them with dodgy contracts. In that they'll write in a contract, say, "Oh yes, we'll pay you so much of a bonus on top of the shit we're paying you if you sell so many units." But if you sell so many units, you get that bonus, say like $500. That $500 is split between the artist, the writer, the inker, the penciler, the colorist.
Well, here's the thing, though, too, though, is like they can probably do that on some of the lower tier artists that they're working with, but they're not going to do that to Art Adams. They're not going to do that to fucking Mad. They're not going to do that to Humberto Ramos or Jeff Scott Campbell or any, like the big names. They're not going to do that to them. That won't happen.
No, not necessarily, but all the new people coming in who have talent, who have, like, especially the ones that are coming in now, especially the artists and inkers and colorists who have talent. Are getting burned almost instantaneously.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the comic industry in a whole, though. It's slave labor. I mean, let's not mince words. It is literally slave labor.
But they're slave labor, and they're pretty much not being paid for your work.
Well,
which is essentially what's happening.
I should also point out it's not even limited to issue 1s with the variants, because going back to Venom, there have been at least 4 or 5 variants per issue. And the 3rd issue, where it's the first appearance of the Symbiote God, they did a variant by a guy called George Molina. I think it's like a 1 in 5 variant. And to buy that brand new, you're looking at about £35 to £40 in the UK. I don't know what it would be in the US and so forth. But the prices are ridiculous.
I wonder if that maybe has something to do with the sales taking a dip too, because it's just like, I mean, remember back in the 90s when Image used to do that, and like Rob Liefeld on fucking whatever his comics, whatever company he had at the moment, they do like 20 fucking variants every single issue. It's just like, how can you can't? That's not sustainable.
No,
I mean, it is just not sustainable. So I wonder if that actually has something to do with the way that sales are taking a shit.
He was one of the worst, but he wasn't the worst. I think Campbell was quite bad when he did Danger Girl, because the series fell so far behind. But when you looked at the variants for each issue, some potentially there's like 10 to 15 variants. You think, dude, just get the fucking comic out. Obviously, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, but, of course, sorry, who was you going to say something?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
But with also, there's an issue with Marvel, which Peter, you pointed out to me earlier in the year. Not only the pricing of the comics, but the poor quality printing involved with some of them, isn't there?
Yes. So they're trying, like, I think it was the latest Silver Surfer. They tried to fob off for nearly $8 for your standard floppy comic. And they're having a running issue people are complaining about, whereas as soon as you run a finger over the covers, the ink's coming off all over your fingers.
Yeah.
And that is something that, having come from, even though it was just print copy level with some industrial printing, that's something that's a massive no-no, especially with the amount you're asking these people to pay. As even at my level of working on things, a customer would never see something that if they touched it to inspect it, the ink came off.
Is that normal in Australia for a book to be $8?
No, this is in the US as well.
This is US.
Oh, it's here too?
Not Australia, really? US.
Oh, okay. See, I thought maybe the exchange rate.
$8.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's fucking nutty as hell, dude.
There was a video.
It's been creeping up through the year because a lot of the people I follow on YouTube have been making note of it. That through the year, as their numbers of actual sales go down, they've been inching the price up.
Right.
So a comic that may have once been, say, like $2.50 is now $4 creeping towards $5.
His Diversity in Comics did a video where he was reviewing, I think it was the West Coast Avengers first issue or something like that, and he showed that even though he'd walked a short distance with his thumb on the comic cover, the ink had come off on his thumb. It's like, what the fuck is this all about?
Yeah, that's called basically being incredibly cheap. And potentially what they're doing is they're using the same print process for the internals as they are for the external paper. But the problem is the external covers are a slightly different paper to the internals.
So they're not setting up correctly on it.
Yeah, so they're not setting up correctly, and it's likely not being properly sealed on the last run through of the print process. So all it takes is a little bit of body heat. The fact that all it's taking is a bit of body heat to make the ink come off that's just such inferior product. It's beyond a joke.
I feel like, when you give your IP to a giant creative engine like Disney, who's been operating for so long, they've cut corners in every possible way.
Yeah.
And now the thing is they're cutting corners on the actual creation of their base product now. And focusing entirely on merchandise. It's just, I walk into a Disney store, and you know what? They should be putting Marvel Comics up in there.
They probably will soon.
I'm not kidding, because people would probably buy them there, because, especially the kids, that kind of thing. They could do all that, but it's just, it really depresses me. It's like what I saw happen with Star Wars, which we're probably gonna get to later. But
we'll get to that. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
Right. But of course, the thing, we can talk about these comics, but at least these ones actually made it to the shelves. The Vision series, to be written by Chelsea Kane, where he apparently deals with a woke teenage daughter. I mean, sounds fucking amazing. Was cancelled before it made.
Is that a little hint of sarcasm I detect there?
Me. It was actually cancelled before it even made it to print.
Really?
Yeah.
She's been working on that for 2 years. Had barely the 6th comic ready.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
And they took one look at it and went, burn it. No one is to ever see this.
I mean, but of course, Kane this is the best part about it. She would later launch a book on Image called Man-Eaters.
God.
About girls that would turn into monsters when they menstruate. I mean, there's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to say it out loud in case I get accused of being a sexist.
And this is a fictional story you're telling me?
No comment.
Yeah.
And I mean, I looked at the front page of it in my local store, which, by the way, had more than plenty of copies. And it's a young girl with a pussy hat on, playing with 2 tampons as their action figures. And I thought, oh, fuck off. And I put it back.
God damn.
Now, the issue 1 of that sold 10,000 units. Issue 2 sold 5. I think I know where that's going. So
I think there was a horror movie called PMS that basically ran along the same lines.
Yeah, let's leave that one there for we all get branded or something.
Well, no. I'm just saying it's a kind of
There was actually
idea.
There was another one called Teeth, and I'm just like,
I'll
just leave that one. People
can
look at IMDb.
I watched that one.
I'm not going to. Yeah, stop that one there.
I'm afraid to watch it, honestly.
Yeah. Now, the funny thing about watching the creators on Twitter sprouting off their opinions, you sort of wonder how any of them are not taken to task for it. Well, one of them was a couple of months ago in the form of Chuck Wendig, after a series of tweets he wrote after the Canova confirmation. I haven't got them here, but essentially it boiled down to him calling people racist, rapists, etc., and daring them to eat a boot covered in shit over the nomination.
Yeah, I saw it. It was vile. Like
it was horrifically bad.
It was like he was trying to purposely pull out the most disgusting analogies he could.
Yeah,
and I'm like, buddy, come on, really.
The Marvel editor he was working with, I'm guessing, reported the tweets, and he was fired from not only that series he was working on, but apparently another project, Star Wars related. Yeah. So the creators, the usual ones, come out of the woodwork to defend him, and even named the editor in the process, and declared that anybody who would take over his work to be a scab. The series was cancelled and replaced with a new Star Wars Vader miniseries, apparently due out next year. But so finally, someone got taken to task for the stuff they said on Twitter. And it was interesting to watch.
I don't know if I agree with the principle, though.
Well, we'll leave that to one side, because obviously that's a whole nother issue. But there is obviously a line, and he crossed it. But he was totally independent about it. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong, which was amusing.
Well, the thing that I took from it, and I actually sent him a few tweets, actually, in earnestness, or earnestly sending, like, I was actually asking him like some very serious questions, and you know, he didn't respond. He blocked me, shockingly.
Yeah.
The stuff that I saw him saying was pretty fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Like he was really, like, I have to imagine, like, if he wasn't drunk, the guy totally lost his shit. He was just totally off base. I mean, the things that he was saying were just really fucking uncalled for, and people taking him to task for it, I think rightfully so.
Yeah.
The fact that he lost his job over it, I think this is a teachable moment, because there used to be a time in our history, not very long ago, within the past like 10, 15 years ago, even if that far back, where people didn't fucking say this kind of shit online.
No.
Because obviously online wasn't as big as it is now.
But it's
stuff because there was going to be blowback from and to their employers. And they knew that. And there was even a time where people had it in their contracts where you couldn't fucking run your mouth like this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the kind of person that says, like, people shouldn't be allowed to express themselves. But when you're working for a company that is very high profile, that depends on a good public relations atmosphere, when you depend on, and you have to be part of that process where you're facilitating a good relationship with your consumers.
But I can shorten this down to one word: professionalism.
Yeah,
right?
No, I mean,
you need to show some professionalism.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, these guys are in there. They're in, as much as we joke about hug boxes and bubbles, they are in a bubble where they think that this sort of behavior is acceptable, and then they go out into the real world, with a really warped sense of what is and is not okay to do. And this is what happens. Now, it sucks the guy got fired for it, but again, this is not him just having a brain meltdown one day and going off on a rant. This has been a consistent pattern of behavior from Chuck for a while. So yeah, he lost his job, but at the same time, I'm like, if I'd done half the shit you'd done on Twitter while using my company's name, my name would be mud, and I would not be working in my industry ever again. It's that simple. Yeah. So these guys get away with a shitload more than the rest of us do, and yet, it's unfortunate, but I kind of really don't have any sympathy for him.
Right, but here's the ultimate point that I was making, is that we have gotten to a point in society where things have gotten so fucked up and so turned around and upside down, where this was considered to be okay for a time, and now people are kind of coming to their senses about it. Well, like companies are, whereas like they're like, wait a minute, we can't let this kind of stuff happen anymore. It's like, no matter how socially these activists speak up, and they, everybody's got to be woke, and we got to stand up for wokeness and this, that, and the other. It's like companies are finally realizing, it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is impacting our bottom line. This is not good. We can't.
Yeah, they're realizing it, because it's gone from, we're just it's just the fans basically being little babies and crying and throwing their little tantrums, to, oh shit, the normies, the average Joe is looking at this and going, ew, that's disgusting. You're a horrible person. Just on principle, I'm not going near your stuff.
Right.
That's what it's taken. It's taken the point that you've got the average Joe who's like, I just like this for a bit of entertainment, going, on principle, I'm not touching that now because of that person.
Yeah. I mean, to tie this off, I've got an excerpt here from the Star Wars Aftermath book for anyone wondering what kind of writer Wendig is. And I quote, "The TIE wibbles and wobbles through the air, careening drunkenly across the Myron rooftops. It zigzags herkily-jerkily out of sight." Fantastic, I'm sure.
Who is he? Fucking Doctor Who? Jesus
I don't know, but
Christ.
the funny thing is,
no,
Dr. Zeus.
That's Ned Flanders, man.
Yeah, but the funny thing is the aftermath trilogy that he wrote, it was on sale in my local budget bookshop for £10 for the 3 books. So make of that what you will.
Right.
Now on to DC. Not a great year for them for reasons we're about to get into. After the disappointment that was Batman 50, which was made fully returnable by the company and would pay back any advertising costs incurred by retailers. Tom King, the writer, had to have a bodyguard with him at the San Diego Comic-Con after apparently receiving threats and harassment due to how shit that issue turned out.
Well, having to have bodyguards because you're getting banned too hard because you created such a crap comic.
I was going to say, I wonder if he really needed the bodyguards or not. You know?
Also, the people were so peeved off is because not only did they set up this huge event, they've basically gone, you like this, you really like this, it's awesome, yeah, yank.
Yeah, nope. And it was a crap conclusion. I mean, even Catwoman 1, which apparently I think tied into it, was also made fully returnable as a result. But yeah, that was like the biggest non-event of the year because they released loads of tie-in follow-up comics to the event, only for it not to happen. I'm like, what?
Wait, was this the event where Batman and Catwoman were getting married or something?
Yeah, that's the one. Yes,
okay,
that's it.
Okay. Right.
And then we had
all the way in, and then last second did the whole, nope, fooled you. Not happening.
Yeah. It's the oldest trick in the book. How did you fall for that?
Then they seem to want to make things worse by doing the Batman Damned miniseries, with the first issue where he showed his junk.
Yeah, Bat Dong.
Yeah, and you just look and think, what the fuck was even the point of that? So that's still going.
That was more or less them trying to pull a whole, look how dark and edgy we're getting.
Yeah, but
edgy.
Here's what bugged me about that. I mean, imagine if they tried doing that to Batgirl, the amount of shit that were kicked up at the result.
Yeah, again, it's double standards, but yeah. I think they were going for the female market, going, "Hey, look, ladies, Batgirl."
Do you think?
Yeah,
I mean, I think. No, seriously, like I'm being serious when I'm about to ask you this. Have you seen the recent Batman animated movies and all the DC animated movies?
Which one are we talking about?
Like where Batman and Batgirl are fucking up on the rooftop?
Yeah, but there's no nudity in it.
There's no nudity, but it's like it gets real close.
Well, let me give you a counterpoint. There was a one-off called Harley Quinn's Black Book, which was drawn by Simon Bisley, and it showed her in various stages fighting in the nude, but her ass or whatever was on display was covered by a black bar, whereas with this there wasn't.
Okay.
So that's what I was going for with that.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. It's just I wonder though. Well, and you know too, I think I'm speaking about two very different consumer groups too.
No, I get what you're saying.
As far as the comics and the people who watch the films, and so, to a certain
with that comic, they were trying to aim for the more matured adult audience over like teens, young adults type thing.
Yeah.
And it's like,
have they ever met comic fans?
But it just came down to like, what was the point of that? Like, even with the context it was in, what was the point?
Yeah.
Shock
aside
value.
from being edgy.
Well, I mean, because it gets people talking. That's why. It's like, oh, did you see this thing? What do you mean, a comic? Oh, well, let me go buy it and see what it's all about.
There wasn't a point. He was again. There wasn't a point. He was just kind of flaccid,
So to talk about edgy stuff, we've got to talk about the Vertigo releases this year, or some of them at least. The ones I've got here, first of all, is Hex Wives, about intersectional feminist witches. The first issue of that.
So it's a documentary.
Yeah. The first issue of that was 15,000 units sold. Issue 2 dropped to 8.
It sold 15,000. That
Yeah.
No, it shipped 15,000. I will remember it.
Yeah. Is that the actual sales number? Or
it contains
that's the trick. That's a trick. They're over shipping, so you can't take ship numbers. You got to take actual numbers of sales from shops.
The content of this had to be seen to be believed, because you got such lines as, and I quote, "These goat knobbers," and "Ye must be japping my ass." And the artwork was fucking atrocious. Even there's one point where they're fighting in the flood. And if you look carefully, you can see the water through one of the women's legs because they haven't bothered to fill that part in yet. And I was like, "Oh, this is terrible." And then,
really, did you expect anything else from it? I mean, sincerely,
I was hoping against hope, I suppose.
Intersectional feminist witches. Get the fuck out.
Then we've got Goddess Mode, which launched this month.
It actually launched.
Yeah, I have no numbers on the issues yet because they haven't been published. But on the cover, Quinn is described as an exciting new voice, and the comic as a quote miracle by Kieran Gillen.
And
it's miracle
by all the usual.
Miracle it made it to print.
Yeah, because looking at the content, and I will be fair to it here, the art is not bad, but the writing, it's excessively heavy on the dialogue. I mean, it may be
word. Yeah, webcomic level writing.
Yeah, there is.
There are a couple of. Is there a co-writer on this, or is it just?
Right, Quinn is officially listed as a writer, but I am inclined to think she had help.
Because I was going to say, I'd like to read this and compare it to the book that she put out.
Yeah,
because holy fuck, what a goddamn mess that thing is. Jesus Christ.
There are some funny moments in it, and I mean, it made me laugh because Diversity Comics reviewed it, and he said he actually liked it. He said it's kind of like a good story let down by bad editing. I can relate to, and it's I don't know. I looked at some of it and thought, fuck me, there's pages of dialogue you could just cut right out there. So it's interesting, that one. It's a bit early to judge it properly, but I don't know. She might actually be a good writer if she actually wrote it herself.
No one believes she wrote this. No one believes that she wrote this. She got someone else to do it for her.
No, you know what probably happened though? What probably really seriously happened? She probably turned in her draft, and DC was like, "Holy fucking Christ, what a mess!" Because, seriously, if you've read her book or even a portion of her book, she's got the writing prowess of a third grader with who's just had a stroke.
Well, she have that ghostwritten?
Terrible. Yeah. No, she wrote it herself. And it shows. It's really bad.
I remember somebody coming out and trying to accuse her of taking advantage of her for ghostwriting portions of the book.
Really?
Does anybody else remember that? I remember that.
I missed it. No. All right. And then we have Border Town.
Dear.
Yeah. Right. We'll cover this in two sections for obvious reasons. First of all, the comic itself. Same pattern as Hex Wives, issue 1, 15,000 U8. The comic itself is fucking atrocious. Some of the worst shit I've ever seen in my life. The dialogue, particularly the artwork
I've ever seen. Just the styling is like there is not a single smooth line in the entire thing.
Yeah,
it just looks horrible, or looks like someone who's basically got Parkinson's disease has inked everything. It's just so wobbly and lumpy and blobby.
But then, of course, you got the main point was the opening scenes where you got a bunch of redneck Americans running into the desert near the Mexican border saying, "Let's make America great again." And they're wearing a jacket that's got an anime avatar on the back, a Pepe the Frog badge, and a few other bits. It's like, oh, really? Can you be any less subtle?
Let's lump together every stereotype.
That's literally what that scene was. And it's like, come on, really?
And of course, what do you mean heavy-handed, Justin? Come on.
I mean, I think one of them was wearing a red MAGA hat, but I can't remember now. But then,
pretty safe bet, yeah.
Yeah, but then, of course, we have the events that took place after issue 3's publication, where Eric Esquivel, the writer, was accused of sexual assault and abuse by a former colleague he worked with in the comic shop, I think it was.
And then more or less came out and confirmed it.
Well, it's one of those denials, as I call it.
That was he. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my god, what a fucking pile of shit that dude is. Wow.
He pretty much came out and said sorry for all the horrible things I did. What'd you say it was? The
he said it was James Bond in television.
Yeah.
That
he was blaming James Bond and the Bonds.
The non-denial denial string of tweets.
Yeah. He's pretty much sorry for everything I didn't do. You know, I totally didn't do these things, but he was doing seriously, go back and watch South Park the movie, and you've got Saddam Hussein's little song about I can change. He was literally doing that, right? It's everyone else's fault, but I can change.
Yeah, right? I wasn't going to give it lip service at first because it reminded me too much of the Chris Hardwick situation, which was clearly the jilted ex who wanted to get her own back.
Yeah.
But then more people
how many women have turned up?
Yeah.
How many women turned up? Girls as young as 16.
Yeah.
Turning up. And the fact that he even tried it on with a co-worker, like when he was in the comic industry, a co-worker's 45-year-old wife. Initially, she laughed at him thinking he was just being silly till she realized he was serious and basically went, how disgusting are you?
Yeah. Now, obviously, after the allegations, the artist and the colorist quit the book, and then the book itself was cancelled and made fully returnable. But DC have yet to
quit or told to leave.
No, I think they quit.
No, the colorist, the other people working on the book quit. Like he was pretty much kicked, but the other people working on the book, the colorist, and the rest, they all just went, no, we're not going within 50 feet of this guy. Forget that.
But at the time of this stream, DC, I don't think, have yet to release an official statement on the whole thing.
And they won't.
No, they won't either.
Well, I mean, why should they? They didn't do anything.
No,
it's like they can't be held responsible for somebody's fucking shitty deeds. I mean, unless they knew, and then then that's a different. That's a whole other subject altogether.
I think there was also a comic he was supposed to be working on. One of the Batmans, I think it might have been Batgirl or something. They've basically just told that's been entirely cancelled. It's not even moving forward.
Right.
Now, to cover a couple of the smaller comic companies briefly, IDW were revealed to be in around $8 million worth of debt this year, with no signs of getting out of it either. And even rehired their former editor-in-chief, Chris Ryall, to be their president, publisher, and CEO of the company. What he's going to do, I don't know.
Yeah, purge all the woke people, but we don't see that happening.
No. Yeah, I was going to say are they going to stop making comics about fucking what was it? Robots having sex? Fucking lesbian, transformer, transgender. Get the fuck out.
Because the guy that had been writing for the last couple of years, that the books that had been really successful.
Yeah.
He decided to move on to other bigger stuff, and you can tell that he's moved on, because I never forgot a few years ago when he basically was at a Comic-Con of some sort, and some Tumblrite came up to him and just basically like, oh, why do you use he all the time with them? He's like, they're alien robots. But why do you use a he pronoun? What about she or they? It's like, they're alien robots that don't reproduce that way. It's just handled to you so people can read the books. Yeah. Okay? Bye-bye.
There was another part that made me laugh, because I think it was Yellow Flash Comics was reviewing one of the IDW comics, and the book literally came apart in his hands while he was doing the video. And I can't remember what the video was, but I saw it and I went, what the hell? It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And then we have Alterna Comics, who have risen admirably in the last few months, putting out some solid content by the looks of it, despite the troubles they've had with Diamond distribution. But I think they're on the way up. I think
it's the Streisand effect again.
Yeah.
In that, as soon as all this shit hit the fan, and poor Peter Simoni basically nearly driven to suicide because the entire company is him and his wife, people rallied, and just the Streisand effect, people started going, so what's so horrible about this guy and his comics? Started looking like, oh, this is actually good comics. He's actually got one comic he made that's his comic. That I think it's about 11 years old, and it's still in print because people still want to read it. What was it called? The Chair. It's basically a psychological horror comic, and he's still printing it to this day. And apparently, there's been a horror movie made from it.
Nice. Yeah, he stuck to his principles all throughout that stuff too. And I think a lot of people really appreciated that because he didn't back down. He didn't apologize if he didn't. He said, what was it? If I don't mean it, I'm not going to apologize. Right. That's a really strong, position to take. And
the thing is, it's professionalism. He's being professional.
Being professional about it, exactly, right? Yeah. He's not going off. He didn't lash out at anybody on Twitter either. He just kind of took it in stride and was like, this kind of sucks, but I'm going to get through it. And so I didn't even know who Peter Simiti was until that all happened, and then I looked into what was going on, and I was like, wow, this guy's actually like on the level. Okay, cool, right?
Yeah. To go into,
he's been on multiple things, and he's a very reasonable person. He's all about comics. He's all about getting comics out there to as much of an audience as he can. That's his whole idea.
Mm-hmm.
So to go into TV for a little bit before you hit the movies and so forth, we've got to talk about the activity at Netflix this year. The string of cancellations more than anything,
including my account.
Yeah. Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Daredevil all shit canned within quite quick succession of each other. No doubt, tied to the impending arrival of Disney Plus. This one. Well, go on then, Scott. Take it away.
Okay, well, this is one of the things I actually kind of looked into because I was very interested in what was happening, and because I'm seeing a lot of people talk about this and saying a lot of really dumb things. And I was like, well, let me look into this and see what's what. And what happened was, from what I could tell from all the articles and such that I read and things, Disney purposely scuttled the negotiations with Netflix. They basically were like, it was time to renegotiate the contracts, and Disney, they were at a point where they're like, we're not going to renegotiate. We're not renewing, but we have to go through the motions and so on and so forth, just because it's like we have to do all that. And people were like freaking out about it. I'm like, what happened? Did somebody get murdered? Like, because I'm reading all this stuff and it's like people are really like losing their shit over it. And when I read it, I was just like, well, calm down, motherfuckers. This makes sense. Disney has literally just opened their own digital distribution platform where they're putting all their stuff on it. Mm-hmm. So the reason that they did this with Netflix was to bring it all back in house. I mean, it doesn't take a mind reader or a prognosticator to come up with this stuff. You don't have to be able to see the future. This is just business sense. It makes sense. They're bringing their stuff back in. They don't have to cut anybody else in on it with Netflix being the middleman anymore. And they own the rights to all this stuff, so they can just re-release it all on their own platform and lock it behind a paywall. Why wouldn't they do that? It's like, duh.
They've got to have people, give people reasons to use their new streaming service.
Exactly.
And this is what's going to happen with streaming services in general, is it's just going to be balkanization. Everything's going to end up behind everyone else's respective streaming service.
Sure.
They're basically expecting people to sign up for multiple streaming services at $15 a month.
Right.
And we're going to see a period where, basically we're going to have a whole heap of different ones, and then we'll see who fails and who survives.
And part of that too is that I think you see diminishing returns when it comes to television and to cable too, and so it's kind of it's a smart move in one regard, because the businesses they're there to make money. Let's just call it, of course, want to make money. They want to make as much money as they possibly can, and if they can cut out cable and TV stations and just do it themselves and keep everything in house, they stand to make more money potentially. But then you piss off a lot of fans, like you were saying. It's like everybody's got their own little thing here. It's like kind of like you've got your Epic Games launcher, you've got Steam, you've got Origin, you've got Microsoft Uplay, you've got and where everything is so divided. Whereas like people are like, oh, I love the convenience of cable, but now I'm being torn this way and the other, where I got to get my Netflix thing, I got to get my DC streaming thing, I got to get my fucking Marvel.
And you're gonna see as soon as you start doing this shit and you make it inconvenient, where people have to do all this, suddenly piracy is going to start making a show again, because because people are going, well, you've now made it again, you've made it easier for me to pirate shit than to buy it legally, so I'm going to pirate shit.
I mean, we talked about it in my house briefly, and I said to him, this new Disney service, I'm not going to sign up for it when it comes out, because I know it's probably going to be much more expensive a month than what Netflix and the Amazon one are. So that was put a stop to as soon as it got mentioned.
And I mean, let's just be honest here too. Again, it's not like you can't find this stuff other places on the internet.
Of course, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, exactly. Now we'll finish with a couple of new mentions for Netflix before we go on to the other stuff. One of them was Disenchantment, which is, of course, the Matt Groening project after The Simpsons.
I still haven't seen that.
Well, I watched 4 episodes and I haven't watched any more. It's very there's humor there, but not enough to keep me interested. And I think Wombat's got more of a harsh opinion than I have on it.
I got bored. It's the problem is that I did not like the main character. It's Matt Groening and it's new, so obviously the comparisons to Futurama are there, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got Fry, who's a fish out of water, who's really been kind of that bottom of the rung guy who gets the short stick from everything, and you're kind of rooting for the little guy. Whereas this one is like, oh, you're a spoilt princess who's basically just trying to avoid an arranged marriage. Nothing really happens to you. All that happens is you escape the castle, and then you get brought back with a grumpy look on your face.
Yeah.
It's all about you trying to find yourself. And I'm like, oh God, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me ask you this on that. Is there, do you see maybe even a spark of potential that he might, it's like, because sometimes these things take a little while to warm up. Like, is there, do you think there's any potential for it to kind of turn a corner and really kind of, maybe start to pop?
No, because, and this was an issue I was discussing with, Peter yesterday, in that you're not going to be able to write a character the same way you would. Like, she needs to be written like Fry, which is never going to happen.
No.
There's no way that they're going to write her like a character who's going to go through all, all the shit that sort of Fry, the equivalent of shit that Fry goes through in Futurama, because they'll just get eaten alive by the woke press. The problem you're going to see is that every series, every movie now with a lead female protagonist is going to be a Mary Sue. Right? For example, the Men in Black trailer that came out this week. Oh, look, a girl who's smarter than everyone on Earth in New York, including the aliens, manages to find MIB headquarters and just gets admitted because reasons. Right?
So, to finish up,
I didn't even think about it in those terms, but I was just like, now that you bring it up, it's like, it does seem.
Whereas in the MIB universe, she would have got neuralized and told to go away.
Yeah,
right.
So to finish on Netflix, we can't not mention She-Ra.
Holy shit, that sucks.
Yeah. No, get it right. He-Ra, Trap of Power.
Yeah. Because the artwork makes it literally look like a boy in a wig.
Oh no, they totally were going for that too.
Yeah, it's He-Ra, Trap of Power.
God.
The thing is, if they'd made it a trap, if they'd legitimately gone with the "it's a trap" thing, I think it would have got a better reception.
Yeah.
Right, where everyone's just going, "That's a boy." No, it's not. It's a girl. No, that's totally a boy.
Yeah, a very manly woman.
Look at that facial structure. That's a boy. Oh no, that's a non-feminine woman. No, that's a boy.
Yeah.
Look at the width of those shoulders. That's a boy.
I mean, you even look at the character of Spinnerella, redesigned from the old series to be a fat woman who apparently farts or something like that. And there was another screen cap I saw later on.
It was basically the joke was you gave us a fat superhero whose power is related to wind. You're making this far too easy. We cannot swing at this.
Not to mention, she's fat, but her face is that of an average weight person, so it's extreme juxtaposition.
And there was this bit I saw where even though she was fat, she was able to fit into a really skinny set of armor. And you think, hold on a minute, you've redesigned it halfway through the series there. But no, it's literal Tumblr-esque artwork and writing, because I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my. And my daughter watched a couple of episodes of it and I asked her about it and she couldn't actually remember anything to tell me after she'd watched it. So there's that.
It's funny. They actually, for New York Comic Con this year, they had a giant statue of She-Ra, right?
Yeah.
Probably about 7 foot tall, and like you guys are saying, it's like you look at this thing, it's like it's like a little boy in a skirt with biker pants on.
Yeah, and just make it trap right. You would have got a better reception.
It's crazy. And another thing that was funny about it too was that they actually they were releasing a limited edition 2-pack of figures, and I tweeted about this months and months ago, and they are just seriously, man, like I've made toys, and I had my own toy store online where I used to sell the stuff that I make, and the shit that I made looked better than these fucking, you know, commercially. Oh, they're fucking awful. It's just the whole thing is just a fucking sham. Like everything about this thing, the reboot is just amazing. It's like, and the thing was too, it's like when it got announced, I remember seeing this spate of people on DeviantArt posting, you know, their rebooted versions of She-Ra, and there were some fucking great pieces of art, man. People were doing some knockout stuff, and then you see the real shit that they made the cartoon out of, and I'm like, oh my fucking god, this has got to be a joke.
I mean, there's also the thing with Rotten Tomatoes, where at first the audience score was at 0%, but then they had a spew of new accounts pop up and give it 5 stars to bump up the rating.
Shocking.
Yeah, totally not astroturfing. But the whole She-Ra out of Western Animation comics, Western Animation issues. There's a YouTuber by the name of EZPZ, who's done a couple of videos on this because he's had people from the Western animation industry approach him and talk about the issues and where all this shit is coming from, all this CalArts fucking bullshit. And oh dear God, like I linked that video to Justin and I warned him about it. And he's like, I can't be that bad. And then he just, when you messaged me after you'd watched it, just going, I didn't realize how bad things actually were.
Yeah, I mean, to go watch the video for anyone that hasn't seen it, but to give you a brief example, there's a lot of sexually transmitted diseases floating around the cartoon industry.
Syphilis. Goddamn syphilis.
Now, we can't obviously not mention the forthcoming High Guardian Spice.
No, can we please just not? I just don't want to acknowledge it exists.
Yeah, it's essentially a new series coming out from Crunchyroll.
Crunchyroll basically took all their subscriber money, and instead of buying more licenses for anime for anime that people actually wanted, they decided to finance a woke cartoon that's ripping off a Tumblr comic that's ripping off Little Witch Academia. Right, and it's just going to be an absolute dumpster fire. It's got the likes of Kate Leith and all the woke feminist crowd working on it. It's just going to be awful. Yeah,
the trailer on YouTube had its likes and comments shut down when they started to receive a lot of flack.
Business as usual then, eh?
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know who Kate Leith is, the Encyclopedia Dramatica profile is very enlightening.
Hey, Kate, you broken up any marriages lately?
Yeah. All right. A couple of other topics to go through before we get to the films this year. First of all, the incoming female Terminator movie series on the way, and also the female Doctor Who TV series. Another couple of examples.
That's been mothballed until 2020.
Where they
what female Terminator movie? What do you what? Huh?
They brought back Sarah Connor for something, and then there's going to be a female Terminator next to her in this poster.
Who looks like a guy.
It's two more examples of them replacing established male leads with very manly-looking women to take the part instead.
Which is unfortunate because the actress who plays the Terminator in that series, if you look at her normally, she's very attractive. They have made her look like an androgynous man in the trailer stuff. It's just, it's awful.
Yeah. And, of course, with the Doctor Who female series, Jodie Whittaker, its viewership started off strong at 10.5 million overnight views and then dropped to 5.5 for the final episode, I think it was. No Christmas episode for the first time in the show's history.
It's been mothballed till 2020.
No, there'll be a New Year's Day episode. Then nothing else the rest of the year. Now, for fairness, I should point out the viewerships for this aren't as bad as the Capaldi season, but it's still very telling.
Be careful about that because they're doing funny buggers with the numbers. They picked for her season. They picked the first episode as the best one, and everyone else was averaged. Right, because people have actually gone back and looked at the numbers and gone, no, you've picked the best episode from her series versus the averages for everyone else. We see what you're doing there. Because the numbers actually got really bad towards the end. I mean, like that bloody Rosa Parks one.
Yeah.
It was just goddamn ridiculous. I'm like, yes, you're lecturing a show made by British people, mostly for British people, about American segregationist racism. Yeah.
The writing.
Yeah.
You know what? I will say this. Okay, Jodie Whittaker's performance, I was actually pretty impressed with.
Yeah, it's not Whittaker's fault. It's the writing.
Yeah.
Well, we can all acknowledge that. It's not Whittaker. It's the writing.
Because I've even seen people, normies, if you will, on my Facebook who said, "What the hell is this? I want to watch a show, not a history lecture."
Yeah.
Not to mention, it wasn't an episode with male pregnancy.
Yeah.
No one outside Tumblr wants to even so much as think of such a thing.
What got me about especially the Rosa Parks episode, it wasn't even so much that they were meeting Rosa Parks. Okay, cool, that's part of history, sure, why not, right? The villain in that episode was so just like pulled out of someone's ass. Okay, so he's a super racist from the future. Okay, yeah, that's it. He's a super racist from the future. Like, are you kidding me? And the stereotypical lines, he's like, "This is where it all started," like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, that was so ridiculous.
The funny thing is, I was watching these trends of where they have women take over the men's roles for these popular series, and there was an interview that popped up on the BBC after the Bodyguard TV show that aired over here from a screenwriter called Daisy Goodwin, where she said TV dramas like that were, and I quote, airbrushing reality by having too many female characters in them. When she mentioned the Bodyguard, she pointed out that all the police officers were women, the snipers were women, the police top brass were women, and even the Home Secretary was a woman. And I think she actually has an interesting point there.
Yeah.
All right. So to get into the movie side of things, almost, we're going to get this one out of the way because this was one of the more unpleasant topics of the year, and this was the whole thing with James Gunn. And his deplatforming after Cernovich, or Cernovich,
lisping manlet fucking Cernovich
made a presentation about his past tweets. I didn't like this. I didn't think this was very fair what they did to him. Discuss.
May I?
Yeah.
Can I just want to do a quick thing? Anyone with James Gunn, when James Gunn, a bit of background for everyone before we sort of let's go off on a frog and a sock. James Gunn used to work on a series of films that are collectively known as the Troma films. Now, the Troma films were deliberately designed to shock people. Toxic Avenger, Tromeo and Juliet, right? Look up the Troma stuff. Hobo with a shotgun, right? They're designed to be as schlocky, as offensive.
Shotgun's not Troma.
It's not Troma?
No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I take it back. But yeah, it's that sort of. You look up the Troma stuff. It's the designed to be as schlocky and basically as out there and edgy as possible, right? So when James Gunn was originally tapped to do the Marvel stuff, there were a lot of raised eyebrows for anyone who's familiar with his previous work going, wow, have they seen his previous filmography? Have fun with that. But he did them well. So then for them, for Cernovich to go, digging through his tweets, and then Disney to go, oh, really? Wow. Oh, we didn't know this. Oh, James, get out. They were looking for an excuse to get rid of him, and I'm willing to bet it's something to do with a contract stipulation where they avoid having to pay him a lot of money. So that's my 2 cents on that one. But
I think it's a bit more insidious than that, to be honest with you. I'm
going
to do you one better.
Yeah, go on.
One better. Okay. When you look at the Marvel films and the amount of people that are working on them, directors, actors, writers, everything else, I will guarantee you, I'll fucking money, a $5 bet. We'll go back to the $5 bet. Meanwhile, bad guy going on. I'll bet you another $5 if you look through.
Yeah, you dropped the zero again.
Again, we've been through this. When I get a job, it'll be 50, but for now it's 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, if you look back through the histories of those hundreds of people, I guarantee you're going to find something that's worse than anything that James Gunn said. Okay.
Can I interject here quickly? Because
sure.
to point something out, because we're going to get into it soon. Rian Johnson, he actually deleted 20,000 tweets from his profile after.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Mm-hmm. But if you look back through their Twitter histories, I guarantee you're going to find stuff that is like, because when you look at what James Gunn said, they took it out of context. It was blatantly misused, misrepresented, and everything. But if you look back through these other people's stuff, you're going to find stuff that was actually said earnestly or sincerely that was worse than what James Gunn said when he was joking. And the thing is, here's the thing that the more I thought about this, the more I think that James Gunn was a sacrificial goat. Or a sacrificial lamb, excuse me. And my reasoning is that they did that to shut people up, because it's like if they cut him down and show people, it's like, oh, we're not gonna stand for this kind of thing. They protect all those other people. You look back at Robert Downey Jr., you look back at his history. Holy shit, that motherfucker's got a checkered past.
Yeah, I mean, but the checkered past for him, it's like, well, Downey Jr. I'll actually argue in defense of Downey Jr. Like, he's done some fucked up shit, but Downey Jr. was legitimately had severe problems with drugs and alcohol because he's bloody.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like when you look at it, he did a lot of fucked up stuff, and granted, like you said, he had a very big problem with addiction. And I'm not trying to make light of it and use him as a scapegoat for this, but I'm saying though is like, there are people that you could look back on and some of the things that they've done and they said that if they wanted to, they'd be firing motherfuckers left and goddamn right.
Yeah.
I mean, guaranteed. But if they do this, if they sacrifice Gunn, they get rid of, one of the big guns, bad pun intended, if they get rid of him, then it kind of sates the off with their heads, activist assholes. If they say that Disney did something like that, then they can protect all these other people that could potentially be used to harm the brand and the other people involved.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I sincerely believe that this was, I don't know, maybe there was a contract thing involved. That's a very real possibility, but I think
it is a possibility. Yeah,
I think it's a little bit more insidious than that. I think they were doing it to protect.
Well, it's also because in the context of the things people were pointing out, it was essentially Disney was very sensitive. The jokes and comments his were making were essentially relating, with, for lack of a better term, they were basically pedophile jokes. And the thing is, Disney
sarcastically though, it was very.
I know. But also at the time this was brought up by Thuranovit, Disney had problems in their parks where the police had done a raid and arrested a bunch of people working in Disney parks who were all child sex offenders.
No,
right. So it just also came at a bad time where Disney was like, accused of not screening properly and, letting all these child sex offenders. And again, it was Florida. And I think Florida is everyone's a child sex offender. I think you have to be one to live in the state. But that's, well, it's
all right.
Florida.
Shall we get off this one now?
Florida, man.
All right. So, because we've talked about Rian Johnson, we'll take our regular visit to the Disney Star Wars universe.
Did you hear they're rebooting it? They're going to completely reboot everything. Yep.
What?
Yep.
Again?
Yep. Yep. There's going to be a reboot. They basically realized what a complete tire fire it is, and they're like, we're rebooting it. Fuck it. We're going to completely reboot. I'll find it. I'll link it. I'll link it in side chat.
Hold on. Reboot it from scratch or just at episode 7? Fuck off.
Right. So to talk about what I've got here, first of all, the Solo Blu-ray came out, and there was a hope that it would help them break even on the budget they spent.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, but it only shifted at the time of this stream 1.2 million copies, wow. which is less than the Last Jedi. J.J. Abrams was brought back into the director's chair after Colin Trevorrow left production. And this was the favorite part about it. He called it an acidic situation, which is a brand new one for me. But the thing that's got me the most about this, and see if you guys agree or not, is that there's literally been no hype that I have seen for episode 9 at all.
Mm-hmm.
No, and in fact, it's the opposite of hype. People just going, do not want.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not surprising,
again,
honestly.
With the normies. When you've basically got the average Joe normie going, I don't want to go near this. It looks terrible. Everything's terrible. You have royally screwed.
I found my source. Admittedly, it's the Mirror, but take that with a grain of salt.
Oh man.
See,
yeah, other workloads.
I've seen a graph of the 4 films they've released, basically the up-to-date Star Wars and the legacy Star Wars. Each film has opened less than the one before it. So it's on a downward spiral.
Looking at this, the quote. It's quoting an unnamed source. The motivation was to refocus expenditure and limit Star Wars exposure to reset the franchise and allow fans to heal.
Yeah,
allow fans to heal.
Allow
Yeah,
fans.
they don't understand.
No.
Oh my god! See,
Yeah.
like when I saw
Allow
episode
fans
7,
to heal after they spent how long pissing on them?
when
Yeah.
I saw episode 7, my initial reaction was bad writing. You know, like the character was too dimensional. You know, it just didn't make sense. I loved Rogue One. I actually thought it was a really good,
Amen, brother.
really strong movie.
Absolutely.
And so that's what made me give episode 8 a chance in the theaters, right? And then within the first 5 minutes of the movie, having that AT&T joke, you know, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like that set the tone for the whole movie for me, and I just did not enjoy it. Right?
I mean,
it was just bad. And then I haven't even seen Solo, so
I'll float this out here because we obviously got 2 hardcore Star Wars fans on the stream. Part of the magic of these films back in the day, anyway, was that you actually had to wait a couple of years for each one to come out.
Exactly.
Whereas with them rolling them out,
oversaturation. It's like what Assassin's Creed did.
Pouring out because the magic
the
magic was in the wait for these things.
Well, here's part of the problem too. It obviously that's a great point. And this is something I've said many times, is the fact that something part of the thing that was great about Star Wars is the scarcity.
Yes,
it's like when you don't have something, a lot of it, you value the things that you have more. But I think even more than that, though, it's like and what EJ just said about, you know, when with games like Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, these things that come out annually.
Yeah,
they're beating a dead horse, and you lack that sense of scarcity, that sense that it's something special. But the bigger problem is that they've had too many cooks. And the writing has been terrible. It's been inconsistent between them, because I mean, you had Abrams on the first one, then Rian Johnson came in on the second one, and then you have Abrams is supposed to be coming back to try and salvage it, right? Which may be a question at this point. Who knows? But when you do that, and the thing that was crazy to me was that, like, Kathleen Johnson Kennedy, sorry, thank you. Kathleen Kennedy, she is not good at her job.
No.
And they renewed it for another 3 years.
Yeah. Was it 2021 or 22 or whatever it was?
Yeah. It reminded me of that quote Kevin Smith said about one of the producers he met in Hollywood: you just fail upwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she's definitely she's a testament to that.
But going back to when you're talking about to bring up J.J. Abrams, I mean, you remember that interview where he's like, "Oh, we want to make a Star Wars that's not for Star Wars fans," and I'm like,
that's a bad idea.
That's just like it's like. But again, you could the Star Trek fans all have the same complaint about JJ as well. They've turned the Star Trek. You don't? You like the new Star Wars stuff? The Star Trek stuff?
I absolutely adore the first one. The second and the third one, not as much. They're okay. The front one and the third one, I really don't like it. But I love the first one, though. I fucking love it.
Turned it into an action film.
They did. See, here's the thing. They changed it enough that it was exciting and new and interesting, but they kept the basis of it there. There was still the heart there. And I mean, a lot of that had to do with Leonard Nimoy, honestly, including him. I mean, excuse me, because he definitely kept it grounded. He kept a foot in that universe solidly. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great, fantastic.
I think another thing which goes towards the resentment of these Star Wars movies is the way the legacy stuff was treated when Disney took over. I mean, I mentioned it briefly last stream, where you had the extended universe books and comics, which were essentially pissed out the window when Disney took over, and now mean next to nothing.
Yep.
Yeah, because there was obviously 3 books they could have used to adapt for the Solo movie. Instead, they got that script.
Well, there's also the whole, like, their marketing, like the Force is female. I'm sorry, like the original Star Wars weren't about big dick swinging Luke, you know, like it was.
Yeah, well, they obviously haven't learned their lesson for Captain Marvel, because the future is female.
Yeah, exactly.
She's a hero.
Same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and You know, and the thing is Captain Marvel's the first Marvel movie that I'm really kind of like just
Yeah.
you know, like anyway.
Larson's not a good actress. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
All right, so
no one's got any confidence in that movie.
No, it's the first one. I just thought, nah.
I'm more interested in Shazam.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Well, it looks
no,
fun.
Shazam actually looks interesting.
Yeah, funny. Exactly. Yeah.
So we've got one more little topic to touch on before we jump into some of the movies that come out this year. And we talked about crowdfunded movies last year because of the Red Pill. And this one I come across literally by accident. And this was the movie about Kermit Gosnell, the abortion doctor, who was labeled one of America's worst serial killers. They had to crowdfund the money for the film, which was rejected by Kickstarter because they claimed what they described the film didn't match its community guidelines. They switched to Indiegogo and were funded in less than 2 weeks, making it one of the highest funded crowdfunded projects of all time. Difficulties continued with the distribution because of the terms abortionist and abortion doctor being used. So they had to rely on word of mouth and social media to get the word out there. And like the event itself, the movie received next to no media coverage in the end. And there's only 13 reviews for it on Rotten Tomatoes, which trickled in slowly from the critics, and they're mostly negative.
Well, this is the first I'm hearing about it, so I don't really.
I got a reference here.
Again, like I said, I only come across it by accident because I saw an interview with Dean Cain, who plays the lead detective in the.
Oh God! Dean
no. Just okay. No. You have tripped. You have tripped my memory for this one. I'm like, yeah, because again, this one was kind of going into that politics thing where it was the right wing politics. You know,
it was a Christian movie, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Dean Cain is very. If as soon as you say Dean Cain involved with a movie, anything to do with abortion, Dean Cain is very politically right wing. So I'm
he's very Christian too.
He's actually said he's pro-choice.
He's
what?
I don't know. I associate him with like Kevin Sorbo movies. Like
another is very super Christian dude.
Yeah, too. I mean, I haven't seen it because it's not available over here. But the trailer showed me that it looks like he puts in a decent performance. But the problem is because of the lack of availability, it's going to be difficult to know. But it was one of those big divides on Rotten Tomatoes. The critics 54%, the moviegoers 98%. So it's there is that.
I think the people reviewing that in that case are people who would naturally agree with the message, because like I hear about the movie and I'm like, it isn't something I would go see.
No, I mean, the interviews Dean Cain talked about it. He at one point, because they were in the set for the hospital, the clinic, I say with inverted commas, and he actually said to the production staff, "Look, guys, this is a bit much. Can we tone it down a bit?" And they showed him the pictures of the scene itself, and it was almost a perfect match for what they found there on that raid, which would obviously unmask all this. But I found this one purely by accident. I thought it was just interesting to mention it in the slightest because of what it was.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, even then, it's...
I mean, I know what you're saying about Dean Cain because some of the movies he's been in are a bit.
No. Even some of the stuff he's personally said, it's just been a case. It's not even his movie stuff. It's he has openly and previously before he's kind of been. Yeah, look, that movie again. It smacks of sort of the other side of the coin when it comes to this sort of shit. So, and again, having I've seen references to it. I haven't, again, not available here. So like I said, interesting. But again, it's the same thing. If people actively trying to sabotage stuff they don't like because it covers topics they're not particularly fond of. So look,
I'm still waiting for Iron Sky 2.
Yeah.
Oh god damn.
Speaking of crowdfunded movies, right?
Yeah. All right, so we'll get into some of the movies that came out this year. Obviously, not all of them. I've made a pick of some of the ones, not all the timing. Right. We'll start off with The Meg.
Man.
I mean, movie about our cat. Yes.
I really like Jason Statham. I really enjoy I like as an actor and like as an action film guy. Yeah, he's great, right? That movie was like,
It was a B movie.
Yeah. It was just, it was like sci-fi Jaws. It was like,
I mean, a budget of 178 million, but it made a 528 million at the box office.
Yeah,
apparently it blew up. People loved it.
Yeah. And Rotten. Yeah. But the thing is, Rotten Tomatoes scores, both the critics and fan score were the same at 46%.
Yeah.
You see,
and then the author of the original book, like all of a sudden he was on all the bestseller shelves.
Yeah.
Right after the movie came out. Now I don't know if he was before. That might be an example of what's it called, the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. But I never saw the books before, and then all of a sudden I'd look at the top bestseller shelf, and I'm like, oh, that's fucking the guy who wrote Meg. Yeah.
And then we have
Statham topped off in Crank 2. That's I think.
And then we have the Happy Time Murders.
I actually bought it. I bought it.
Why?
I bought it because
it's Melissa McCarthy thing, right?
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy. I bought it because fucking one of my favorite movies when I was a kid was called Meet the Feebles. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Oh God.
I fucking so that just stoked my Meet the Feebles memories, So I was just like, I wanted to check it out. So I did buy it, yeah.
How did you think of it?
Mediocre.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, I mean,
so the Melissa McCarthy movie, then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, like it's worth a watch. You get a few laughs out of it, right? But all the best laughs were put in the trailer.
I mean, the numbers for this one were. Someone's cracking a beer open.
Oh, sorry. It's a Pepsi anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, right. There was the budget of 47 million, but it only made back 28 at the box office.
Shocking.
Critics 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. The fan score 41. So I think it matched up what you said, DJ.
Yeah.
This next one,
people finally realize that Melissa McCarthy isn't funny.
Yeah.
Could be.
I mean, this next one I'm mentioning because.
But she has promised to stop being sexy.
Oh, shut up.
No, that was Amy.
Amy
Schumer. Yeah.
Oh, God.
This next one I mentioned for reasons we'll get into shortly, which was Peppermint, the Jennifer Garner action flick. Budget of 25 million, but it made 52 at the box office.
No, that's not
Rotten
How
Tomatoes.
was it, though?
Well, I'm getting to that. 12% critics on Rotten Tomatoes, but the fans 74%. This one was really peculiar because
it's going to be. I reckon it's going to be one of those cult ones. But like we wanted to see it down here, it got like they basically released it for a week down here and just went, okay, bye.
Yeah,
and just disappeared.
Yeah, so, the couple of cinemas in my town, none of them were showing it. And I just found that really odd. And I also saw someone point out on YouTube that there was an odd lack of support from the Western feminists for this movie. But then you look at it, and Garner is not your stereotypical butch woman. She's long hair, but very beautiful, and she's quite dab handy with a machine gun, which I think also had something to do with it.
That's the film where like she gets fucking assaulted or some shit like that, and then she trains for years to get her revenge, right?
Yeah. It's a drive-by.
But you see this, but you see this in films like Kill Bill, where the female protagonist is not treated like a Mary Sue. Like again, Kill Bill, opening scene, just getting the shit kicked out of her. But you don't see feminists pushing films like that. They push Mary Sue films.
Yeah,
which I think part of the reason why it didn't get as much showing time either. I mean, I don't even know when it's coming out on Blu-ray over here. I've seen nothing about it, which is really peculiar. And then we have The Predator.
I saw that on your recommendation. Actually,
I watched it as well at the cinema with the wife. This was one of the films we went to see this year because we only went 4 times. A budget of 88 million, box office 161. The score was interesting because the critics on Rotten Tomatoes are at 33% and the fans are 38%.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, it's one of the rare occasions they're agreeing on something.
Yeah, but the thing is, me and my wife watched it and we enjoyed it. It was a fun film and there were some damn good moments in it.
I think it was watchable. I thought it was really like this is the first time where a predator actually like communicated with people.
Yes.
Right. And that I found a little off-putting. I was just
I found it.
I don't know about that. But
I found it.
But I just like the inference that autism is the next level of human evolution.
Yeah. That tickled a few people. I mean, I have an autistic son, so I'm a bit torn about it. But there was a great bit, for example, where one of the predators jumps in the back of this SWAT van and carves all these SWAT men to pieces, and when one of the guards goes, "Everything all right back there?" The Predator, fearing he's going to be discovered, gets one of the severed limbs, shapes the hand into a thumbs up, and pokes it through the window. And the guy goes, "Oh, great! I was just wondering." And I roared with laughter. I thought that was brilliant. But then, of course,
it's very 80s. It's very 80s.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the main thing that overshadowed the film was the whole row with the involvement of the actor Stephen Wilder, who turned out to be a registered sex offender for, and I quote, enticing a minor by computer. A friend of Shane Black's, who he'd got small roles in previous films. And when Olivia Munn apparently found this out 2 days before the film was locked, she went to the Fox executives and insisted his scene be removed.
Actually, she already knew about it when they're on the set. She just sat on it and waited till then to go blabbing.
Oh, really?
Yep. It came out that she knew the entire time. She knew on the set and decided because she didn't like certain things, she was going to wait to basically be, bitchy and drop it right at the worst possible time.
I mean, she did it so she could finish the movie and get paid for it, not get fucking recast. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But this kind of thing sucks. But
no on that, because she waited till like the very last minute to dump this when they're already all production was done, everything was done. It was about to be released when she decided to dump it out there.
And I feel
her own job though. That's the thing. Yeah.
Well,
and she's got a history of doing things like that too.
I feel like if it came down to like, look, this guy, like, he's not as big a name as Olivia Munn.
No.
Right.
He was a nobody.
If it came down to it, they would have booted
him.
him out. Yeah, they would have booted him out and kept Olivia Munn, most, in my opinion.
I mean, the funny thing was, I was really concerned at her being an X. What the fuck has she done that's worth any good? But when we watched it, she was actually pretty decent in the movie. I will give her a dues. So yeah,
I just hate that we live in a society now where something like that happens. And granted, if somebody's fucking up like that and they're a sexual predator, then they shouldn't be in a movie with children or whatever it is. Whatever the case is.
Yes.
But I hate that we live in a society where like you can ruin an entire production by bringing something like that up, and all these other people get fucked because of it.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man.
And what's worse is like she waited to the last minute to even bother to do anything, like to basically openly, publicly blab. And even then, it's a case of you could have said something sooner to basically stop this guy from even being in the production, because he was a no-name nobody for a tiny portion of the scene.
He's a good friend of the director, though.
Yeah.
I know, but still. You left at the last minute, and she has a horrible history of pulling shit like this to get attention for herself.
Well, when you say that, can you give examples?
Yeah, that's
in past productions, a lot of people say she's difficult to work with, and in past productions, she's basically been silent all the way through the production until towards the end when she's gone, I have problems with this, that, and otherwise.
Which films in particular? Is anyone you can name?
I can't remember which films, because I like her as an actress. I don't pay any attention to her at all. But what came up with this, others came up saying she's difficult to work with in that respect, in that she'll wait till the last minute to complain, or wait till the last minute to bring something up, and sort of cause problems. Hence why she's not really hired very much these days.
No, because I mean, the last thing I saw her in was X-Men Apocalypse, and she didn't do fuck all in that.
Yeah. In that, apparently she complained a lot about the costume. But again, didn't complain until they're into production, then started complaining.
Yeah. All right.
A prima donna. Yeah.
Yeah, and then basically all her interviews, she whinged about how bad the costume was and got called out, saying that you had time to tell us when you were having problems with the costume while it was being made, but you waited till we were pretty much in production before you started whinging and moaning, and it was too late to make drastic changes. And all you did was whinge about the costume in the interviews.
I mean, it's kind of a shame that the film will be overshadowed by this for a while, because despite obviously what we talked about, I enjoyed the film and I will buy it on Blu-ray when it's out. So yeah, there was that. But on to the next one, which was one of the films I saw at the cinema and I enjoyed, and that was Venom.
My girlfriend and I went to go see that in the theater. She loved it. She absolutely loved it. She's not a comic book person, right? Yeah. I like parts of it.
Yeah. I mean, it was a fun but goofy comic book movie.
Yeah. It was a unique take on like focusing on the villain this time,
Yeah, I mean,
an anti-hero out of him. So I appreciated that, but yeah, I don't. It's really hard for me to put my finger on exactly.
I mean, the budget for this one 100 million, but the box office take was 855 million.
Mm-hmm.
Rotten Tomatoes, this was an interesting one. Critics score 28%, fans 85%.
Yeah.
But I do have my criticisms of it. First off, the violence, and it was very PG-13.
Yeah, that was one of the big things. The fact they made it a PG-13.
Yeah. I mean, there's two scenes where a couple of guys get their heads bitten off by the symbiote, and there's no
implied.
blood.
Yeah,
it's like
implied.
Where's the blood? I mean, I found that a bit hard to swallow, and then
see what you did there.
Yeah, and the CG and the CG in places was a bit difficult as well, especially when the final showdown scene occurs. Because
I had a really hard time telling Venom apart from Riot.
Yeah, that was that. I found that difficult.
I couldn't tell them apart. I was like, which one am I rooting for? Like,
yeah, and it was funny for me because my son is autistic, as I said, and he doesn't like the cinema because it's too loud. But because he loves Venom, he actually said, "I want to go see this," and we got the money for it. And I thought I'm going to surprise him, so we went out into town, and he thought we were going furniture shopping for his room. So he's walking beside me with his bottom lip dragging on the pavement behind him. And he said, "So which shop are we going to first?" And I went, "Oh, well, we're going to see Venom." And his face just sort of changed. He suddenly
I love
frowned.
that moment with kids.
Yeah, and his face sort of frowned. Then he sort of slightly grinned and gave me a side eye. He went, "What?" And I said, "Dude,
you
really
fucking what, mate?"
Yeah. I said, "Dude, do you really think I'm going to drag you into town on a Saturday afternoon to go fucking furniture shopping?" And he went, "Okay then."
Dad, you actually bought the Venom viewing license?
Yeah. But it also, I've also got to point out that the character, the way the symbiote was played, was really, really good. It was a very sort of Ren and Stimpy take on it.
I think he flipped too easily. At first, he was all like very villainous, and I think he flipped to being a good guy too easily. I like the quips.
Yeah, because there was a great bit where he has to break into his boss's office to deliver some evidence of something, but he can't get past the security guard in the lobby. So he turns into Venom, flies up the building and smashes through the window, and he leaves the evidence on the boss's desk, and he looks back at the broken window, and the suit goes, "Jump." And he obviously thinks, "Nah," and he presses the button for the elevator, and the suit goes, "Pussy."
Yeah.
And literally, my son and I laughed our heads off when that bit happened.
Yeah.
And to end on a poignant note, it was the last Stan Lee cameo before he died. I think he's got two more for Avengers Infinity War Part 2 and sadly
I hope
Captain
they find
Marvel.
a way of like doing like a tasteful cameos for him, like having something where he's employee, like for example, just a cheesy. He's on a photo on a wall, employee of the month or something. Just got to acknowledge him somehow. You can't not have cameos.
He apparently he's filmed his cameos for Infinity War Part 2 and for Captain Marvel. But the Venom cameo was good because he obviously says to Eddie as he's walking his dog, "Don't you give up on her now," even though he has obviously no idea what's going on. And Eddie goes, "Don't worry, we won't." And the suit goes, "Who's that guy?" The suit obviously wants to eat the dog he's walking as well. So it was a good cameo. But my favourite cameo from Stan Lee, obviously everyone give their turn here, was in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where he's in the museum and he sees the suit's gone. He's like, "Oh man, I am so fired." But it was a very poignant cameo and sad. Obviously, that it was his last one film shown before he died.
I got the Deadpool one was the best for me, man.
Yeah,
when he's
a DJ at a strip club.
Right, and the next one was another one I saw at the cinema this year, Halloween. Good one, AJ. Budget 15 million, but it made 253, and the score with the fans and critics was pretty even almost 79% critics and 73% fans. I thought this was a good movie.
You know what? I grew up on slasher films.
I remember you saying.
Yeah, like full on, right? So but Halloween was the one that I never got. I was never really into. I don't know. Like Freddy Krueger, loved Freddy Krueger, loved Jason, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, Michael Myers.
No, I thought it was very good because they did the sensible thing of ignoring 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and all that, and just doing a straightforward sequel to the first one.
It's an alternate universe.
Yeah, but
well, I think they said that those weren't the ones that came after weren't canon, and this was actually canon.
No, they even ignored the second one. And
they've outright said though that the other ones are not canon at all.
Yeah.
Well, what was it? Halloween 3: Season of the Witch didn't even follow the freaking story.
That's one of the Rob Zombie ones, isn't it?
No, that was the one that Carpenter was involved in, but only on producing scale. The Rob Zombie ones were the remakes.
Yeah.
Is that the 4 and 5 or 5 and 6? I'm not sure how many.
But it was good because there was no humor in this. It was a straightforward horror film. And when Myers gets going, fucking hell does he get going? His first victim is a kid. And also it was nice to see John Carpenter involved in this as well because he actually did the music with, I think it was his son.
And his band. He actually has a band that he did all the music for it.
And it's a really cool updated version because it's not overly dramatic. It just sounds like synthesizers again, but it's a little twist on it. So I liked it because it was a decent movie and it's one of the highest grossing horror movies, I'm told. Nice. Then we've got Overlord.
Wolfenstein movie without actually being a Wolfenstein movie, but it's
the zombies thing.
Yeah, Zombie Nazi.
Oh, I totally forgot. I've been wanting to see that, and I totally forgot.
Yeah, it was one of those annoying things where it got a really limited release.
Yeah,
like it just came and went, and like we didn't get a chance to see it either. It was just gone in the cinemas so quickly.
Right.
But the numbers kind of reflect that because the budget was 38 million, but it took 41 at the box office, and the Rotten Tomatoes 81% critics, but strangely 72% fans.
What? Sorry. Okay, hold on. I missed what movie we're talking about.
Overlord.
Okay, that was the one that was supposed to be part of the Cloverfield universe originally.
Really?
Yeah.
No. That was a rumor. It was proved
false.
Was it?
So
it's got Clover universe.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
And another sequel that was done this year was Creed 2. And I never got to see this, but I liked what they've done with the story because it was essentially a continuation, but a nod to the old films at the same time because of the return of Ivan Drago and his son. And the fans obviously thought it was the same as well because after the budget of 50 million, it made 134 at the box office. And the score of critics and fans was 83 and 84%. So This is one of the few films where the critics and the fans were in alignment. So I was giving them their dues for that. And we'll finish on an interesting one that I haven't seen yet, but I know Peter and Wombat have, and that was They Shall Not Grow Old.
Oh God, we went and saw this on Saturday.
Yeah,
it's essentially reconstructed. For those who haven't seen, who don't know what it is, it's essentially reconstructed. Peter Jackson studio got involved with a restoration project of old World War I footage, right? Because basically the stuff's on nitrate film. It's just falling apart. So, like typical film nerds, when they started restoring it, like capturing and restoring it, they went, wait, how can we improve this? How can we fix this? And it turned into a project where they've colorized and stabilized the film in terms of frame rates, because these were all hand crank cameras. So that's why they always look like they're going either too fast or too slow.
Yeah.
And they've made it into essentially a little World War I documentary. Now, we went and saw this on Saturday. I cannot recommend it highly enough. But here's the thing. If you're a squeamish person, you're going to have a hard time with this, because not only do they resurrect the film, they colorize it, they give it audio, they give voices, right? They got lip readers in to actually lip read what the soldiers were saying, and they've voiced them properly. They've got a bunch of actual World War I veterans doing voiceovers. Now, these guys were saying, yeah, I was 15. Basically, these guys were ranged between about 15 and 18 when they signed up for World War I. And so you're watching this stuff, and there's one scene that I was squirming in my seat. It was just such a heartbreaking scene. As you can see, it's a bit of a distant shot, but you can see they've got a horse train taking a bunch of artillery. which is usually about 12 horses and a couple of other horses helping out. They take a near direct, and the thing is, they got the audio on this perfectly right as well. You can hear the shell coming, you can hear the scream of the shell, and the thing impacts, and you can see that before the shell hit, it takes you a couple of seconds to realize, before the shell hit, there were people on the back of those horses. Not anymore. After the dust clears, you can sort of see the horses are just sort of flop there, and then the horses start trying to get up and run away, and you kind of realize the horses are missing legs and just flopping around, and just worse that that this is the history and what actually happened.
Yeah.
So it is just one of those.
This is real footage too. This
is
not a film. This is actual footage.
Actual World War I footage.
I had a woman sitting next to me, and early on when they were sort of just. Because it goes from black and white when they're talking about the beginning of the war, all the recruitments and all that, to colour for the main war part, then back to black and white for the end of war. And the early bits, I had a woman sit next to me, and quite a few times she sort of muttered, just like, "They're just boys. They're just a boy."
Yeah.
Because they're youthful, like plump faces.
Yeah. I mean,
these are
I mean,
kids.
there's no
kids.
I couldn't find any information on the budget, but it took $4 million at the box office, and the Rotten Tomato score is quite even, 97% critics and 95% fans. It's already available on Blu-ray over here alone. I don't know over in the States.
I think you can get it pretty much every format right now.
Yeah, but it's probably one of the most amazing tributes I've heard of yet to the men who died in that war. And I don't say that term lightly either.
Yeah, it's one of those must-watch things. But again, it's emotionally very heavy, right? You've got to be in the right frame of mind to watch this. And like we had a friend of ours with us, Bathsheba, and he said, there was times where he had to close his eyes and look away because it was just too hard. Right? They go through one battle of World War I where you've got a bunch of Englishmen storming a German trench. And just their mates are just getting picked off left and right, and they're like, and it's just, and again, they've got the audio right where you will hear the whiz of the bullet and the thud of it, and then they'll flash to a recolorized photo of someone, a World War I person who'd basically been killed in that manner, and it just keeps hitting it. Oh, it's just brutal. But it's, and that's the fact that this happened and these guys lived through it. And but the other thing that
it hits home, the fact that it's all real. These were real people who suffered through this, who died in this, to the point that they were basically going, well, if I'm going to do this trench run, here's hoping the bullet that puts me down instantly because I won't feel anything.
Yeah, their biggest concern was like, there was one particular one where you had the actual voiceover, the veteran doing the voiceover, talking about he's doing it and he's seen one of his fellow soldiers who's been hit with an artillery shell that's more or less blown the guy's left-hand side off. The guy's still alive and screaming for his nanny. And the soldier says, I put him down. I shot him because he was dead anyway. And the guy's you can just hear the emotion. He's crying when he's telling you that. But he's like, he's one of my platoon, and he was crying for his nanny, and he just says, I couldn't do anything else. I shot him because it just couldn't leave him like that. Just little bits and pieces like that. So look,
Let me ask you a question about it then. Do you think this would be the sort of thing they'd show in schools eventually? Would it be too much?
It'd be too much, but the thing is, they should, but they won't, because it's really, if you're going to show it, you should be showing it to high school kids. The kids will come out traumatized. Like they would really, like, unless you'd have to go through all the history of it. And even then, I'm a huge history buff, and of especially World War I. Even then, I was struggling. So it's something they should, but they won't, because you'll just have kids just come out with just, I'm triggered. No. They will come out legitimately traumatized.
Yeah, this is no holes barred with the sound, especially when they were basically doing the explosive rounds that explode and drop bullets, essentially just pop and then the shatter. And they showed the colorized photos of bloated bodies covered in flies, horses that had been hit by shrapnel that had holes blasted through them, guys that had, like, in case of, you took you a few seconds to realize they had no head. Others where it takes you a few seconds to piece together what you're looking at and realize that that's a body, and what you're looking at is where their limbs were, which is now just fabric and meat. They did not hold back on that. They didn't really show much in the way of people getting killed, like for camera shots aside from the one with the horses, but that was at a distance. But most of it was photographs recolored so you can actually make heads or tails of what you're looking at.
I'm suddenly hungry.
But so yeah, it's a very, very, very gut-punchy movie, not pulling any strings. And the way it ended, it makes you realize where cynicism started. In that these guys went through all this in the very beginning. They're told, oh, yeah, you're going to make your mum and dad so proud. You're going to go in there. You're going to be a hero. And whatever else comes back, nothing.
They were demobilized, and they, even when they got back, they even have a hard time getting jobs because people just wouldn't hire veterans.
So we'll end on a familiar topic. I usually ask what are predictions for the following year, the coming year. But given what we've talked about, I'm going to say, what are our hopes for 2019 in this industry?
I'm hoping that the Alterna / Comicsgate crowd do really well with their comics, and that they make sustainable, enjoyable comic series out of them. As for movies, I've had a look at the 2019 release schedule. It's just a cavalcade of mediocrity and just remakes, reboots, and I'm like, meh. Right, it's just very little I'm interested in it at all.
I would be very interested, or I would be very hopeful if Hollywood in general, and this is building upon what Wombat said here, would realize that the tried and true formula that they've been fucking going with all these goddamn reboots and shit like that over the past 10 years or longer even, is boring. They're appealing to the lowest common denominator, and I'd like to see them go beyond that.
Okay, Scott.
Sadly, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
I'm with Scott on that one. Like, if we would love that to happen, we know it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, like, here's the thing: they make money through recognition. It's like, wait a minute, oh, that's a thing that I recognize. Let me go see that and see if it's any good. That's why they do it, because it's like, oh wait, Transformers. I like Transformers. Let me go see another Transformers. Oh, Ghostbusters. I recognize that. Let me go see that. And it sucks, but it's just the way it is. You just kind of you just have to ignore it, and you got to hope that people come up and find alternative ways to make movies of quality, which is seeming to be a relative impossibility of late.
All you can do is vote. Yeah, all you can do is vote with your wallet. When they produce this shit, just don't see it. Right? It's the only way.
The only hope I've got for the new year is I don't want to see any more comic shops close.
That's gonna get
that's gonna be I think, and that's what shits me about this whole situation, is that it's the little guys that are suffering the consequences for the big guys' terrible decisions.
Yeah.
Right. That's what hurts, is you've got these comic shops that are open for 10, 20, 30, 40 years that are being cannibalized, and then you've got the woke crowd at Marvel who can sit behind Twitter and shit on the fan base, and there's no repercussions for it.
Yeah, because obviously I posted that video on Twitter the other day about the comic shop that have been going 40 years, and they said they were going to be lucky to see out. Longer. They were like 60 odd years. Yeah, they said they weren't probably going to see out the new year, that they were going to close, which was heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah, the one near me that I was going to from since I was a kid, they just closed recently, and that's 40 plus years. Before, like they were around like 10 or 15 years before I was even going to them, and so we're talking like nearly 50 years they're gone.
Because I was talking to one of the proprietors of the comic shop in Birmingham that I've been to, and they had said there are people that they have come in that won't buy Marvel on principle now. And luckily my local one is still going, but because, as he said to me, he saw this coming and was able to divert a lot of his customers to different books from, say, Valiant and Image and so forth.
Well, and that's good. That's a good comics owner, comic shop owner, somebody actually cognizant of what's going on, and because you don't always see that. You go into a comic shop most times and nobody ever talks to you. Nobody ever says anything to you.
Yeah, he's a good guy, actually. So, he's a good guy.
Good on him.
But yeah, that's my only hope. I just don't want to see any more comic shops close. I know there probably will be some that go, but I just really don't want to see any more.
It's sad. Well, the industry's changing, and there's not a clear path for where it's going to go forward. Unfortunately,
no.
Print is dying. I mean, it is dying. So it's I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. My only hope is, honestly, the only thing I am hopeful for in 2019 is, and I'm kind of bemoaning it as well. Maybe not bemoaning. That's not the best term for it, but I'm sad. I'm saddened by it. Is that the Avengers movie is going to see a lot of people from the cast of the Marvel films leaving.
Yeah,
and that bums me the fuck out, man.
Yeah, and what? Let me
not going to be Captain America anymore. That really.
Yeah, let me pour some salt into that potential wound. The ones that are going to be leaving, basically those characters leaving, are going to be replaced with their woke counterparts. So you're going to see Iron Man, like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, go into the background, and he guarantee he will be replaced with Ironheart in the going forward.
Oh no, you know who it's going to be? Probably it's probably going to be fucking Black Panther's little sister.
Yeah, I get it. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I didn't think about that.
I'm shocked you're not excited for Captain Marvel, Scott.
Well, no. Here's the thing, and we talked about this a couple of times, I think, in the past. But I generally, when it comes to stuff like this, all right, unless it is something super egregious like Ghostbusters, where they went out of their way to alienate the fan base and really fuck the whole thing over by being a bunch of fucking cunts. I'm gonna fucking say the C word. They're cunts. Fucking all the shit that they were saying on TV, all the fucking lies that they were spreading. Fuck those cunts. Fuck them. You know, unless they're doing that, which for the most part, that really hasn't been a component of the marketing for the Captain Marvel film. I mean, they did that dumb thing that I called out about the soundtrack, where they're like, this is the first soundtrack for a superhero movie made by women. And I was like, yeah, no, that is so wrong. And that fucking tweet, Jesus Christ, my fucking mentions were blown up for a fucking week.
Momenchies.
Dude, seriously, man, there was like 70,000 fucking retweets and comments. Oh, God, leave me alone.
Yeah.
I mean, but like they tried to do that thing, and I was like, yeah, no, Yoko Kano, fucking
I remember you saying.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that was a fucking nightmare. But since then they've kind of backed off of that, except for the Hero thing. It's just like, oh, that was kind of cringy, and most people have said that on fucking Twitter and everywhere else. But for the most part, it's been kind of quiet. So I'm, for stuff like this, for new movies, I'm cautiously optimistic. I want to be surprised. I want them to change my mind. Mm-hmm. I want them to make a good movie, because I love the Marvel movies. I mean, except for the first two Thor movies, which were fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And Black Panther, which was fucking terrible. I really love these films. I think a lot of them really transcend the base material and really kind of aspire and come to something better. Like fuck, the Cat movies are so good. Oh my God. But I want to be surprised. I want to be surprised in a good way. Show me something. Give me a good story. Give me something I can actually care about. And the one thing, and I talked about this earlier a little bit, is that Brie Larson's not a very good actor. Everything I've seen her in, she's not been very good.
Oh, well, come on now, Scott. The Academy thinks different.
Well, I mean, she's one of the it girls now, so you know, obviously.
She's also
why?
I don't know. Yeah, she's just. I don't have hope for her in the role, but again, surprise me. Yeah. Make me wrong. Make a good movie, tell a good story, and I'm in. All
right,
you know Peter, what
about you? Oh, you want to say something quickly before Peter jumps in?
No. I go ahead.
As far as the future of things, it's like I'm hoping stuff with this Comicsgate thing keeps rolling along comfortably as it is, and eventually does start helping out the little guys with the comic shop by starting to get some of their product into their stores. And also hoping things just, like, with the comic industry, it's not going to get better. I'm hoping it just keeps going the way it is, so they can all just burn out and be gone.
Yeah.
It's honestly, at this point, they're so, the fact that they're throwing professionalism as a whole out the window and allowing these people to literally piss all over fans, dox fans, and other people who are trying to do the industry good, and try to actually destroy their lives and do nothing against them. No firings, no warnings, no nothing. It deserves to burn. It's just like, I have no respect at all anymore for things like Marvel or DC. I just can't. The fact they're letting this go on and harboring it, and in some places you could say encouraging it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you've lost all my respect, and you don't deserve to continue on as you are because you're destroying everything below you as well because of your behavior.
Okay. All right.
As far as movies go, I don't care anymore.
On a more positive note,
go on then before we finish.
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse was amazing.
Okay.
Let me ask you something real quick about that. In all the trailers, the way it's made, it looks like it's got a fucked up frame rate because it's real stuttery.
Yeah, you do get a little bit of that in the film. I think it's just a stylistic choice, to be honest.
Oh god, it makes my head hurt when I watch the trailers, and I'm just
it almost looks like stop motion animation.
Yeah, it gets real jittery, like it's like fucking like it's getting a fucking frame rate drop because the GPU is fucking taxed.
Nonetheless, it was a really enjoyable film. I loved it. I loved it. Right, I was like, this is great. So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks to everyone for joining us on the stream. This has been fun. It's actually going to be a memorable one because we now have it on recording where we broke Scott's brain briefly. And I'm going to listen to that several times, I know, just to hear his brain go, what? And he's unable. The first time we've actually managed to stop him talking about saying, that's going to be one of the highlights I think I pulled off this year.
Oh, God.
So thank you for that, guys. Scott, I'm not going to let you live this one down, mate. All right. All right. So thanks to EJ, Scott, Peter, and Wombat for joining me, and thanks for those for listening in. This was a good laugh. And before I finish, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Same to everyone else.
Okay. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.